We have discussion for the urban growth boundary, and that's when we'll have kind of a discussion of the documents you see here. We'll go over that again in just a minute, and then we'll announce the schedule for the public involvement meetings or the public hearings. My suggestion on those is to do those at both meetings in December, and just have those on agenda item and go through. There's not a lot of discussion, but I think the more the better, knowing what we're working through, and try to have that done. But on your agenda, we will request that we add item 11C, and that will be the playground fence discussion. Now, I've provided you some documents and information that we'll go over at that time, but just kind of everyone understand where we are, what the process is, and get that information out there. So that's what we have. But aside from that, for the work session, I have several things to go down the list with you, and we'll just kind of get right into those. The first is the urban growth boundary discussion and public hearing schedule. Obviously, the map that you have before you is the map that we discussed last time. Everything currently in green everything on green is currently in the city limits of the city of Fairview. Everything in yellow is the existing growth boundary. The items in pink we're suggesting to be removed from the urban growth boundary. Maybe you look at me like there's a question about that.
Did you say removed from the urban growth boundary?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. We just don't see that being in the foreseeable future for the city of Fairview. So rather than attempt to include that, there are several limitations to being there: utilities, water, sewer, all of those things, and that just doesn't make sense for the city to consider as a practical matter for an area to grow. Now, that's not to say that if someone came in and wanted to annex that area into the city, as we discussed at the last meeting, they certainly can make that request. This doesn't prevent the city from considering theirs. It's just not a part of what the city would plan on for its own growth. As we know, the state legislature has approved what commonly known as lasso annexations in Williamson County, and that anytime there's a property owner who desires to have their property annexed into any city limits within Williamson County, then that municipality is required by state code to consider that annexation.
And remind me, the pink is stuff that's not developable.
The pink is in the current urban growth boundary. Currently, that is yellow. Currently,
Okay.
the pink is yellow. It's an area that's approved for Fairview's urban growth boundary.
Okay.
Upon review of our urban growth boundary, those areas don't make sense for the city to attempt to practically grow within.
Okay.
So the discussion would be to move those areas out and then go back and include as practical growth area what you see in the blue in the lower
Okay,
sections.
that's where you lost me, because I could have sworn a while ago you said to remove the blue area. So that's where you lost me.
So that's where we were
Okay.
to go there. So there wouldn't be a whole lot of discussion at the public hearings as far as removing those areas, because again, those are not something that we would really expect practically where we could be anyway. However, the areas in blue, for the meetings that you and I and Commissioner Butler have sat in on, we know that those blue areas are positive growth for the city.
Okay.
And I think it does benefit the city to go in and identify fully what those are. That also gives us the ability to have some discussion. For example, if this is in our urban growth boundary, we adopt this, and this urban growth boundary is what is agreed upon across the county, Williamson County, with all of our partners, and someone lived in one of those areas and said, I want to annex into the city of Franklin, then I think the city of Franklin would reasonably go back and say, that's in the city of Fairview's urban growth boundary. We can consider your request. We're mandated to do so, but our decision on that request will be no, and help do that. So urban growth boundaries are really important when you have areas or municipalities that border each other or likely will border each other at some point. It will be tens of years probably before the city of Fairview borders any other Williamson County city. So I think this is basically an administrative agreement at best. Again, we are required to consider the annexations if they're requested by a property owner. Part of that debate, and we'll continue to get information on this, but part of that debate is who considers that. Right now, if an annexation comes in and it's contiguous, that goes to the planning commission and then to the BOC. The state code states that the decision-making body shall consider that. So in that point, we'll have to figure out whether or not someone who's not contiguous will go to the planning commission or go directly to the BOC. We're waiting on some guidance on that. So, but that's where we are, and we will obviously have an improved map and show what this means in proposed areas as it relates to the land use map. But does all that, for the most part, are we okay? Commissioner Butler, Mayor, I know there's been a lot of work by the two of you on those. We just want to make sure we're presenting that in the correct manner.
Yes, sir.
I think so.
So what we'll do is, if it's agreeable to all of you, we'll set this up as a public hearing, and we'll do on both meetings in December. We'll obviously advertise it, get all the information out there. And then we'll just do those as public hearings, have a full display. Here's what we're looking to do, here are the reasonings for it. We'll also request that someone from the Water Authority of Dixon be here so they can speak to that matter as well. And if they can make it to one of the two, that would be great. Both would be preferable, but I think they'll help us out with that. If in the meantime you think of anything that we know we need to do, the next item on the work session agenda, the bond issue, results and projects. I sent you an email earlier today, but some of you may not have had a chance to read it. We anticipated, or let me back up, we had two projects that took place that were of significance for the city this week. The first was our bond rating that we received from Standards & Poor's. You may recall from the email and from history that the city's 2015 bond issue, 2014, 2015 bond issue, the city had a bond rating of an A, which is not a bad rating, but that bond rating was obtained through the purchase of bond insurance. How bond insurance works is it's a prepayment to purchase a favorable rating, and there's a range that lets you purchase. So let's say that you were going to be an A- on a bond issue, and you realize that you can get a lower rate or be favored more in the bond market, then you can purchase bond insurance. You can buy your way from an A- to an A, and all you're doing is prepaying the risk of default, right? So you eliminate that default. So if the city was to go into default, then the bondholders would simply file on that insurance claim, and the insurance company would make that bond whole. So we were bond insured that we purchased at a bond rating of A, and that was done in 2015. In 2019, Standards & Poor, through some review of the city's financials, you may recall, in 2017, that was the first year, or really the second year of our proposed financial plan that's gotten us where we are today. In 2017, we installed this plan, we stick to it, this is what we're gonna do, these are steps we're gonna take, this is the result we hope to achieve over, at that time, was a 10-year period. Obviously, we submit our audits every year to the state, bondholders, everyone else. In 2017, we implemented that plan. In 2019, Standards & Poor's, without us asking for review, improved our rating from an insured A to a standard AA. We were a AA-. So we went from an A insured 2 steps to AA-, so we knew we were on the right track in 2019. We put the plan in place in 17. Standard & Poor's recognizes that in 19, 2 years later. They rate us at a AA-. We went through the bond rating telephone call with Standard & Poor's last week. They went to their committee Tuesday, and we were rated formally by Standard & Poor's at a AA, which was 1 step from where we were. So knowing all that, the process where we were, let me tell you the result of that. When we made the proposal where we discussed the bond rating and the bond issue, you may recall that we had a proposed interest rate of 2.75. We were at a AA-, and we were at 2.75, but we knew we'd put the work in to get an improved bond rating to help us some. This week, we went from an AA- to a AA, which is 1 step, but the difference for the city was a 0.5% in interest rate. we dropped from 2.75% interest to 2.2% interest. The net value to that, to the city, is $38,000 a year in cash flow and $1.3 million in total interest savings over the life of the bond, for the sole effort of working to make sure we met our financial goals and improve that bond rating. So over the last 3, 4, 5 years, when we've been able to tell the public, here's what we expect to do, here's how we're gonna do it, here's what we want the response to be, we actually exceeded that goal if you look at the amount we saved. So everybody across the board should be really, really excited about that, and you're kind of owed some thanks you will probably never get for putting in that work, because for us to go from an insured A to a double A in 4 years for a city our size, I doubt there's no city in the state that's seen that type of result over the last 4 years. So everybody up here is taking a part of that. Listen, just adopting budgets. This BOC has been a part of adopting one budget so far, but that one budget added $300,000 to our reserves. That goes a long way. That's a big deal. So when you guys have questions about why these things are important, where they are, you have that you can hold in your hand and deliver that to anyone. So you should be super excited for that, and you're owed again a great deal of thanks that you likely won't hear, but it makes a big deal. As we've also talked about, we're spending today's dollars tomorrow, not tomorrow's dollars tomorrow. So when we go through the bond issue, when we go through the budget, all those things, you know you can comfortably go back and say, we didn't commit a single future dollar of increased revenue to any future debt service. Everything that's done is future debt service with today's dollar, and that's unheard of. To go through that, get that bond rating, and know that you've already paid in advance 1 year on a bond you didn't have yet is pretty incredible. So thoughts, questions, ideas on any of that at all? I sent you also, I emailed you a link to Standard & Poor's. It's just kind of a rundown. If you click on the link for the email I sent, it will outline for you the steps to what each bond rating means, how you get there, some of the pieces and parts behind it. Right now, we're at a double A. We can only increase 2 more. We went from an insured A to a double A, which is great. We got an email back from our financial advisor, hey, congratulations, double A. And my reply to him was, we appreciate that, but we're not done. When we get to triple A, you can send us the congratulations. Right now, we just appreciate the help. So in all honesty, 2026. So I don't think we're that far off. I think regardless of if we issue bonds or not, we request a rating review in 2026 in anticipation of going forward with the building of a police station and fire station. So I don't think we delay in that, because we know that's the next step in the rating, and the rating is relatively inexpensive. But that gives us an idea of where we are. So I certainly would do that, and I don't know why we couldn't be there in that time period, given the path we're on right now. So if we walk out of this room any night in calendar year 2026 with a AAA bond rating, that's going to be a day. We're headed that way. So so that's where we're on that information.
Thank you.
No, thank all y'all. This has been in the works for I don't know, 5 years now, when we first kind of realized where we were. But those 5 years happen 1 year at a time. That's every budget year, right? That's how it works. That's how those things are done. So it's the commitment is, while there are a lot of people, the commitment really has to come from the BOC. The BOC adopts the budget. You have to buy into what's happening, and those are 5-year steps that get you there. So that's how it works. Next item on the American Recovery Plan stimulus money, the Stormwater program. As you're aware, I sent you an email. We've received half of those dollars. We were scheduled to get $2,450,000 that we committed to Stormwater. We have half of that, the $1,225,000. That money is already in the bank. We have moved all of that money to the capital fund. It's secure. So that money is set aside. That $1,225,000 is there today. We have until December 31, 2025 to expend those dollars. knowing that that's where we were, Kevin and Sarah have already put together our proposed stormwater regulations and ordinance package. It's on my desk right now. We'll review that over the next couple of weeks. That will be presented to you at the first meeting in January. That's an ordinance, obviously, so we have to have 2 readings. So, given that the document's complete, we'll read through those. As soon as we get that document approved, which will likely be in February, then we will proceed with developing a capital plan and stormwater management plan for all the stormwater that we can address. So, we are right now about 1 year ahead of schedule on stormwater from where we thought we would be. We had hoped to have an engineer next year. We weren't sure about the stormwater. We now have our second staff engineer in place and the $1,225,000 in the bank to see that program.
And I presume it's not gonna be any difficulty to spend that by 25.
We could probably present you a $10 million plan and maybe get a third of what we're doing. Once we get these dollars in place, and the next phase of that will be a stormwater user fee that we'll present. I think it's inappropriate to present a stormwater user fee without having a stormwater development plan. I don't think we should request dollars until we can show what they're for. So what we'll do is we'll take the first half of that money, install that plan, make sure we have the capital part for all that. We'll get the second part next year, start doing capital, and then we'll likely propose to you that for the fiscal year that begins July 1, 2024, include a stormwater user fee so we can do the recurring maintenance and work that we need to do on that. So we're still 3 years out from that, but at that point, the community will be able to see the work that's been done to make those improvements already. So we're just trying to make sure they can see what's being done before we ask for something else. It's one of those opportunities where you can do that. So. And next item on the work session agenda, our financials. As you all know, we try not to budget projected revenues. We budget, all of our revenues, we budget off prior year. So if we had $5 million in sales tax come in last year, we're gonna budget $5 million this year. We don't project the increase. Last year, we had a 10% increase in sales tax. We didn't budget for another 10% increase this year. We budgeted for a 0 increase this year. That's how we funded our reserve to this point, is making sure we're careful with that. So with the current year budget, we have, we budgeted level revenue this year over last year. Right now, 3 months of the year, although 3 months of the year are early, we're projecting about $450,000 over that number. Now that can change. We don't know what that looks like, and now obviously we have an employee compensation plan that will be a part of that for this year, and all that will be in the amended budget in February. But we'll do the same this year that we do every year. Once we get to the end of that year, we'll go back, all those extra dollars, we'll stick that into the reserve until we meet the 20%. So if anyone wants to know what happened, you said you were gonna take in $2 million, you took in 2.4, and you only spent $2 million. Where's the other $400,000? It's in the local government investment pool. It's in the bank, and that's how we got there. Not only do we secure those dollars, we actually secure them in a totally different financial institution. You may recall that all of our operating deposits, all of our banking is done at one bank, except for the reserve fund. The reserve fund is at a separate location in a separate agency to ensure that there's no commingling of any reserve funds, or that could be called out without any other things. So every amount that we see over that, we put in that bank account, or that investment account. As a part of the financials also, I had a 30-minute meeting or 30-minute phone call today with our auditors. You may recall that our budget year for last year, and every year ends June 30. The audit has to be complete within 6 months. That's state code, and it goes out to all of your partnering agencies, all your bondholders, all of that is available to them. Right now, we anticipate that the audit for the fiscal year that just ended will be on the next VOC agenda on December 2nd. And as we have for the last 4 years, the audit appears to be as clean as there could be. Our auditor changed this year. So all of you have probably heard me say, or some of you heard me say, that I'm a big fan of an audit. I use an audit as a tool. So when these auditors come in, you have a lot of agencies that they hear audit, they don't like auditor coming in, they want them in and out. Our auditors will tell you, we literally bug them to the point they're ready to leave. But we want to make sure that every opportunity we get with our auditor to help us improve in any way, they see things through a different lens. We make sure that we absolutely quiz them on any area that we can improve on, and they're helping us with that. This year, we're working on the LISO program. We're shoring up some, the way we receipt some of those funds and our fixed asset module, so we can go back in and better handle our depreciation schedule. So we've made those changes. They're working with us on that. Everything looks cleaner than what we'd hoped for. So far, budget has exceeded every expectation this year. It certainly did last year, and our auditors are confirming that for us.
Is that sales tax revenue like a 15-20% overestimated? Is that what that number is?
So right now, it's about 10.
10, okay.
It may be a little over 10 if you look at state shared revenue and local. And everybody's just kind of nervous about that. You look at that number and you say, wow, we're up. How is that here? And it's not everyone's experiencing that, but we certainly are. And the only thing we can attribute it to is more people working from home and spending their dollars in Fairview. You know, there are fewer people driving to Franklin to work, fewer people driving to Nashville to work. You have more people living at home or working at home. So when they were buying groceries on the way home or eating lunch out downtown or some other places, now those dollars are being spent here. And we're recognizing that. You can certainly see that trend. That's how we think that goes. But you can also see that trend in the type of homes that are being built and sold, because the majority of your homes now of the new construction type, and you'll see a lot next door in the development that's coming on, is you'll have a home office space where you wouldn't have had that before. 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, maybe 4 bedrooms, 3 bath. Now you need bedrooms, a home office space, bathroom, that sort of thing. So that's become the trend in home building, and certainly that lends itself to the idea that people would be staying home to spend their money. But everything on that side is far ahead of where we thought we would be, so. And then lastly on work session, just a couple things that we know we're gonna have to work through. The residential zoning rewrite that we've been working on for some time. We're in the final stages of being able to present that to the board. That's a complicated document. It kind of took on a life of its own, and there's a lot of work to be done there. Commercial zoning was somewhat easy. It's not that difficult on your commercial zoning. All we really had to do was go back and break out our commercial general into things that were preferred like uses. That wasn't so hard. Residential zoning is a little more complicated for a variety of reasons, obviously single family, mixed use, all those things. But there are some things we're gonna have to have VOC feedback on to complete this, and obviously Planning Commission to get there. So on the list that I have you, there are a couple of things we're gonna need those partnership with, and a couple that we're gonna do fairly easily. I have listed out on your document A through E, and I'll go down the list pretty quickly, but on item A, the smallest lots are to include the POD regulations. As it sits now, what we're doing now is getting rid of PUDs and PODs, Planned Urban Development or Planned Unit Development, or POD, Planned Overlay District. We're getting rid of those for a single like use home. As an example, let's take an R20, 20,000 square foot lots, right? Well, in the past, what we'd gotten was an R20 PUD request, because the argument or the discussion would be, I have to take part of my property that's being developed, use it for on-site sewer, and because I'm losing property for on-site sewer, I need smaller lots. So I'm asking for an R20 for the whole site, but the PUD, so I can use smaller lots, basically the same number of homes in a smaller area than if I could use my total property or my total site. couple of issues with that. One is the developer at the end of the development is not gonna own the area that's on-site sewer. That on-site sewer is gonna be a separate tract of property owned by the Water Authority of Dixon County. Right? It's not a part of the development. It's not a part of open space, green space. It's Dixon County Water Authority owned parcel that you can't play on, run on, use, anything at all. So in that instance, that goes away, right? So what we're doing with this is going back and saying, for your application for the city, you're gonna have to use straight zoning. You're gonna have to tell us what you're wanting to do with the property, right? Under the PUD, on the old system, someone comes in, you wanna do R20, 20,000 square foot lots, right? However, because I need it to be a PUD, I have to do on-site sewer. Our current regulations say that your lot sizes can be half of the designated size, half of the zoning size. So in this instance, an R20 PUD, and you hear R20, but an R20 PUD gives you 10,000 square foot lots, right? So we'll get rid of the PUD or pod designation, require them to go through straight zoning. Now they're gonna request an R10, right? Where you would have said, we want to do an R20 PUD, and we can go down to 10,000 square foot lots. There'll be no more such thing. You can request an R10 for the area that you can develop, but with that, under certain zoning classifications, the PUD designations will still apply. As an example, someone comes to you, the BOC, and there's an R20 straight zoning. The Aiden Woods phase 2, the area that we heard about where they're building behind Aiden Woods and Castleberry, right? Developer comes in, they want to do an R20, 20,000 square foot lots, no problem, it is what it is. But if they would have come in with a PUD, say they needed sewer, then they come in and say, oh, we want an R20 PUD. That PUD designation then brings the design standards back to the BOC, right? An R20 straight zoning, they can build what they want. It's R20 straight zoning. An R20 PUD, because they were using the smaller lots, those design standards, elevations, landscaping, those things come back to the BOC. We don't want the BOC to lose their ability to have those discussions for areas of smaller lots. What we do want the BOC is to be able to understand these are going to be smaller lots, right? So rather than doing an R20 PUD, they will come in with an R10 zoning, and R10 zoning would carry the designation that the BOC gets to approve those just as if it was a PUD. So you, the BOC, aren't losing any control, you're actually gaining some control. You're also gaining the knowledge of these are truly accurately what the lots they're asking for are going to be. So that's the purpose of some of that, is to clean that up. So if you have, and the discussions have been, an R20, R40 would be, there would be no overlay of that. If you're in a half acre lot or a 1 acre lot, they stay as they are now. An R15, 15,000 square foot lots or less, would be governed by the current PUD design standard or design schedule. So they would then bring that back to the BOC for those elevations. So if you're doing an R20, you can do your half acre, 20,000 square foot lots. You can build them as you would normally build them. Anything smaller than an R20 would be considered a PUD under the old standard, and they come back to the BOC for the design review. Trying to clean that up. So you, the BOC, and everyone else can understand, when someone hears R20, that's a 20,000 square foot lot. R15 is a 15,000 square foot lot, not an R15 PUD that can be 7,500. That's how we get those things. So now with that, that'll get us into the cluster lot sizes and all those things, and we'll have to have that, but that's where we need everyone's help. So that's the first biggest change that we have. A couple of changes that will be minor. Item B, mobile homes will be removed from any allowable zoning.
I
Right,
thought that was already a situation, no?
it is not. Mobile homes are allowed under R40 zoning. So you have current regulation state, a mobile home is allowed under R40. So there's also the issue that you have, and this is state code, the best example I can give you of this is Lake Road. If you go out Cox Pike, you take a right onto Lake Road like you're headed toward 96, there's a series of mobile homes on the left-hand side of the road. There's about a dozen of them out there. State code provides for, and this is no longer done, but the state code provided that any area in any county that's designated a mobile home subdivision or a mobile home development by the county forevermore remains a mobile home designation until such time as the property owner changes their mind. But you gotta think years ago, rewind from not from where we are today, but 25 years ago, right? And I think the intent was to prevent cities from encroaching on rural areas where mobile homes were prevalent. And the idea that a city could grow out there and displace someone, I think was the mechanism behind that. How do we protect residents in the county from urban growth? The way you do that is you could go to the county and say, okay, we want this area designated a mobile home subdivision. The county designates that, and the cities have no authority to go back in and district that out. Right? That's how Lake Road is today. So that is a grandfathered in mobile home park.
So that area on Lake Road is a mobile home park?
That's how it's designated by the county, that's correct. In fact, if you drive down there, you'll see on the left-hand side, at least one mobile home that's been replaced in the last 5 years, where the property owner came in and we went through this whole process for this thing. We had to go through all the investigation of that, and yes, the law is that if it's ever been designated as a mobile home park or development, I forget the exact term, but if it's ever been developed or designated as that use by the county, that zoning stands until such time as they request it be moved.
See, all these years, I thought those were individual lots that just had mobile homes on them.
They're individual lots, but the tract of land was designated as mobile home.
So if the tract of land changes hands, does that change the?
Only if the property owner, you
Changes
can't
the
even, you can't even go in and say, okay, because the process at one time was if it's determined to be destroyed by more than 50%. Storm comes through, tree falls on it, they don't maintain it, all those things. But in areas where they've been designated by the county as such, they can go back in and replace it.
Okay.
Now, growth, the market now has changed. Fast forward back to real time, and the market and expectations have changed such that even those property owners at some point are gonna wanna remove that designation because the property's too valuable, right? So the market will help clean that up. So that's how we arrived at the mobile homes allowed under 1 acre lots.
Do you know how many mobile home designations that we have in Fairview?
There are 2 that I'm aware of. The one is on Lake Road, and that's only about 4 acres of property there on Lake Road that border the lake, actually. And then the second is the mobile home park right at next door to Walmart. My understanding, those are the only 2.
Okay, because I remember, and I don't know, Brandon, if you were on the planning commission at the time, but there was a mobile home that burned down, and a man came before us asking to replace it, and we had to deny it because I guess, what was it, less than an acre? Is that what?
Under the zoning, then it's less than an acre. I mean, anything less than R40, they're not allowed. So if he had a lot that was zoned anything less than R40, he wouldn't have been able to put it back. You could zone that out.
It just,
But if his property is designated by the county as a mobile home lot or mobile home subdivision, then he has every right under the law to replace it. Until such time as the county removes that designation.
it just seemed like to me that it was on Lake Road, but I might be wrong.
Right? I don't doubt that to kind of, I'm a big fan of plagiarism, so you know, that person is who brought that issue to me. That's how I learned of the county, because he wanted to replace the other one. So, and I forget the gentleman's name.
It was an older gentleman and his son was with him. I don't remember exactly when it was, and through the years, there are some that have stuck in my head because
Right.
I really felt for the person, but we
Right.
had to follow our rules.
Right.
So I can't remember exactly all the details, but I do remember that,
It's the same, it's the same property owner.
okay,
So he came to us,
yes.
how long ago it was, actually Wayne Hall and I met with him.
It's been a while back.
So that gentleman comes to us and wants to replace the mobile home. Wayne Hall had previously told him no. Fair enough, right? No problem. He comes back up here and says, no, I can, you're wrong. Here's the documentation that supports that. So he brought it and I'm like, yeah, there's no way. So Mr. Hall and I then went and met with the county attorney to get this, how did this thing arrive? And the county attorney said, the gentleman's telling you the truth. That area is owned and that thing has every right to replace that mobile home. The
Okay,
city can't.
so it was, am I thinking right, it was Lake Road?
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That's correct. So those are the two areas. But outside of those two areas, the current city zone says for R40, mobile homes are allowed. We're simply removing that provision. So you wouldn't be able to install a mobile home anywhere in the city unless it was on one of those previously determined locations.
But if somebody bought the piece of property on Lake Road that the mobile home sat on,
It
they could
carries.
take that zoning off, right?
So they could, absolutely. That's right. They have every right to request that. And like we said, the market's gonna dictate that. It's not gonna take long. Lake Road is already kind of on the upswing. It's not gonna take long for those properties to become so valuable that happens. So that will be a market rate cleanup of itself.
So just as an example, the mobile home that's across from the vacant France plant.
That's a non-conforming use.
Okay,
So if that one were to, under the current zoning, that's over an acre parcel.
okay,
Okay, so that it's free to be there. Once the zoning goes away, then it could remain until such time it had to be replaced, and it could not be replaced.
okay.
Because isn't that property sold or something?
I don't have a clue.
I thought I saw a sign that said pending, so I guess, but that's like all mostly commercial in that area.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the sale of
Yeah.
it, but
I don't either, but I just
So-
remember seeing a sign saying pending where that is, so,
so for us, that would be removed. We'll clean that up on our side, and that'll go away, and then we're just down to 2 sites, and again, market rate will determine that change of those sites. Under item C, duplex, you may recall that duplexes are allowed under R20. So if someone has an R20 lot is zoned R20, you can build a duplex on an R20. We will change that, so the new designation for that will be RD. It'll be residential duplex. So when someone comes in and they request an R20 zoning, you'll know that that is one house, single family, on a 20,000 square foot lot, not the potential to have a duplex. The best example I can give you, if you get out and look at this, is if you drive through Sweetbriar Springs, pull into Sweetbriar Springs, it's just a loop, you come back out. If you drive into Sweetbriar Springs, about halfway down, you can take a right, but don't go straight. Sweetbriar Springs is R20, right? All the homes, all the new homes in there. But on the left-hand side of the road, as you drive in, the property owner is proposing, I think, 4 or 5 lots there that will be duplex units. There are R20 lots. There's nothing wrong with the zoning, nothing wrong with the size, but they clearly, under our existing code, can build duplex lots. So on one side of the street, R20 single family, on the other side of the street, R20 duplex. So the new zoning for that, and in the future, once we get this done, an R20 will be 20,000 square foot, an RD will be residential duplex. So when they come in and they want to do duplex on a site, they'll have to get that property zoned as RD, residential duplex, and then you understand, everyone will know what that is. And the minimum square footage on that lot will be 20,000 square feet. So you'd have an R20, 20,000 square foot lot, straight zoning residential, or an RD, residential duplex, that must be at least 20,000 square feet, but you're notified at the zoning that their intent is to put a duplex. You could not put a single-family home on an RD. RD is residential duplex and only residential duplex, just like an R20 is single-family, one home.
so duplex, condo.
Condo would be different, condo would be multifamily.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Is there a difference between duplex, condo, and townhome?
Multifamily.
Okay, so RD would be any of those three?
Residential would be residential duplex. Residential would be a structure that houses two separate units side by side. That's a residential duplex. Anything other than a residential duplex is gonna be RM, residential multifamily. We'd identify what are the zonings, because the residential multifamily is gonna include so many units per acre. RM8, RM12, RM5, that sort of thing.
So is a duplex not multifamily?
Multifamily is typically considered more than two. Duplex is 2 units. Multifamily is anything more than 2.
Okay, so townhome would typically be more than two?
Town,
I'm just trying to figure out
So-
the difference
so
there.
a townhome is, as a townhome as we know it, is, the best example I know of is the townhome development right across, on Highway 96, right across from Bowie Park. The townhome development, I forget the name of it's the Meadows?
100?
100, I'm sorry.
Okay,
The Meadows,
the
that's,
Meadows.
those are
Oh,
townhomes.
because they're like,
Correct.
okay.
So that's a multifamily development, because that was a big parcel of land, they're gonna come in, they put 35 of those things in there, but they're individual sold units, so that's more than 2.
the condos are the same thing, right?
Condos, townhomes, apartments,
But
anything.
duplexes are just two.
Anything with more than 2 residential
Okay.
units will be multifamily. RD would be duplex 2, and you'd have to have 20,000 square feet to do that. That protects the homeowner. We've gotten several questions about, okay, what happens in Aiden Woods? Can they put duplexes back there? I heard they're putting
I've heard that
duplexes.
too.
The answer is yes. Under the existing zoning, yes. So we would go in and clean that up. So RD, residential duplex, clearly known, multifamily, more than 2, single family, 1 structure. Get all that stuff cleaned up out of the way, so. Item D, on that, and I know this is so much, but it's important stuff, that's why we're doing all this. Item D, on-site sewer footprint to be removed from parcel acreage calculations. We hit on that just briefly, but again, what happens is someone brings in a site, hey, I have 40 acres, but I'm gonna lose 10 of it for sewer. So now I'm developing 30 acres, but I wanna have all these numbers for all the things. Once this is adopted, they'll have to section out what's gonna be the sewer area, what that footprint's gonna be. We'll remove that from the property calculations because it will no longer be owned by them at the completion of the sewer infrastructure. Water Authority owns it. We'll parcel that out and then consider the development on the developable property, not the section that includes the on-site sewer, because it can't be used for anything. You may recall, we had the question of, is open space visual, usable, accessible? What are all those things? Well, if I have open space that's visible, but it's just a field where the Water Authority's step system is, then really what value is that to the subdivision? None. So then you go back and figure out what's there, because the Water Authority could go back and plant trees all around the border of their property. It's no longer visual open space. Blocked by trees that you can't see.
Is there ever a situation where, in the future, they could, get sewer? Or is it, if it's a step system, always a step system?
There is hybrid. The best example I can give you of that, and I'm sure I'm gonna mess up some of the details, and you know I'm not an engineer, you know I'm subject to making mistakes. But the best example I can give you of that is Otter Creek. Otter Creek has several phases. So there's a portion of Otter Creek that is gonna be on conventional sewer until such time as the whole subdivision develops out, and then it will be on a step system. I think there are hybrids that you can do. It depends on the availability of the Water Authority of Dixon County as it relates to sewer. So
My concern would be the reverse. That's what I was wondering about.
What-
So if it's on a step system, can, in the future, it become like sewer, and then there's a whole piece of property that's owned by Dixon County Water Authority that's no longer like needed for a step system?
I mean, in theory, I guess you could, but that would require that they've developed some conventional sewer system capacity somewhere else. And if I'm the Water Authority of Dixon County, if I have a step system over here that's paying for itself with the operation, and I've developed new conventional sewer capacity somewhere else, I don't think I would tie on existing users to my new capacity. As a business model, I would use my new capacity for new customers. Save the money, just because of the cost of those things. That's a great resource to them. I think what you'll see more so than that, and the best example I can give you of this is the 114 acre parcel that's for sale, that was proposed for zoning on Highway 100 at the Hickman County line. When that developer came in, my suggestion to that developer was, if they're considering sewer in that area, to partner with the Water Authority of Dixon County to build overcapacity on the step system. So their on-site sewer then could serve commercial on that corridor. So I think the trend will be not to develop step sewer systems that can later be converted to conventional. I think the trend will be to go to larger step sewer systems that can serve an area greater than what it's simply attached to at the time. I think those will become the model. It's just so difficult to get conventional sewer without making a huge investment somewhere. I think the larger step systems will become the norm. And developments will feed into those. My crystal ball thinking, I don't see any instance where somebody will come out and come off of a step sewer system onto conventional. We wouldn't have any kind of say in that. All that's so highly regulated that I don't think we would be we wouldn't know the effect of that. But, I mean, and then lastly, as a part of this under item E, the open space clarification, we'll just need to make sure we do that with everyone at the Planning Commission level. I know we have a couple of work sessions with the Planning Commission. We just need to identify how we're gonna calculate that open space. Open space, improved open space, that sort of thing. How does that language need to look so we can craft that and get that into this document? We have a work session with the Planning Commission to consider some of this at the December Planning Commission meeting. So any of you can attend that meeting. We'll start at 5:45, and that'll be a pretty important discussion for what we're doing on clarity on that so we can get this part. The residential zoning is the only component we're lacking right now to get the comprehensive plan adopted. Obviously, comprehensive plans change, they move, they develop. It's a living, breathing document, but the zoning is what governs or guides your use of that. As we talked about, we'll get the commercial done, we'll get the residential done. At some point down the road, it always happens, a development's gonna come in that makes absolute perfect sense, except it doesn't meet the zoning, or doesn't meet the land use map. You figure out what you do. Other part of that is you're gonna have things that come in that absolutely have no business being here, and they don't meet the land use map, and you rely. So, it works both ways, but it has to be pliable both ways.
So basically, if somebody has 100 acres and 20 of it, say is a step system, 20 acres, then basically they're just saying they're at 80.
Right.
And then their open space is however much it is.
Right.
Then so their zoning is based on, it's based on the 80, but then a portion of that's open space, right?
Correct. So how it has been applied is, let's use the 100.
Because used to, it would be based on the 100,
Correct. So
and now it's based on the
on the 80.
minus the step system area.
That's right. Someone will come in and they would, so let's say our open space requirement was 10% for our purposes. So they will come in, they say, we have 100 acres. We're required to do 10% open space, which is 10 acres. But our step system on site is taking up 20 acres. So that takes care of our open space requirement, right? We only need 10 acres for open space per code. We have 20 acres of open space for this system. So now we have this visual open space, and they calculated that in. So to your point, you're correct. What we would then do is go back in and say, you have 100, 20 is going to sewer, so now you only have 80.
So 8 would be
So-
open space, but it's in that 80
It's in
that's
the 80.
minus
That's
that
right.
20.
That's right.
Okay.
So
So it's
then-
usable open space, not we can see a field.
Correct.
Okay.
And that would also prevent them from coming in and saying, I have 100 acres, I want to do R20, but I need an R20 PUD because I can only do 80. So by that standard, they have 80 acres of 10,000 square foot lots, right? Obviously, we're thinking R20, that stuff. So in that instance, they would have to come in and say, by the same math, we have 100 acres, we're losing 20, we're requesting an R10 straight zoning. But at that point, the PUD requirements apply. It goes to the BOC, so now the BOC can consider elevations, design, roads, streets, all those things as a part of the overall development. So it strengthens the participation by the BOC. For sure. It gives those guidelines, those governing guidelines, a chance to have some life as it relates to what you see on that thing. Then you figure out what the open space is gonna be after that. That's why this will be so important to figure out, because there'll have to be some give and take between what's open space, what's density, what's visual. Again, as we've all talked about, is density lot size, or is density cluster development? What do you want the open space to be? We're down to kind of that discussion to figure it out. Fully understanding that we could have something that makes absolute perfect sense in January, and it makes no sense in June, right? So, that's the way it is. I mean, we'll do these things and go. So as long as everybody understands, everyone in this room, you guys included, planning commission staff, is gonna do everything they can to get this right, but there's gonna be a hiccup or two. And we'll have to go in and figure out what those hiccups are, and over time, those will be cured. The purpose is, how do we get all that cleaned up so those questions don't come back to the BOC? So I know that's a lot. Thoughts, questions, concern on any of this as we get in? I've told you guys before, this has probably been the most progressive year Fairview's ever had. I'm afraid next year's gonna be worse. There's a lot going on. It's not a little bit, it's a lot. So
Thank you, sir.
we have like
We have 4 minutes.
4 minutes. And thank y'all for all your time sitting through all that.
We have 3 minutes.
3 minutes.